Hello and welcome to Pulse of Culture. I'm Jan Darasz and I'm sitting in today for Sally Jastrzębska, so don't panic. Our guest today is Clare Mulley, and she's a winner of a new prize sponsored by the Polish Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and it's for the best foreign language book that promotes Polish history. And we're speaking just a day after the awards ceremony happened here in Warsaw. And this is a great honour from the country's Foreign Minister, Radosław Sikorski, and this is the book. So we'll be talking about Agentka ZO. Welcome to the programme, Clare.
It's wonderful to be here, thank you.
Second time.
Yes, Jan, it's lovely to be back.
We're going to be talking about Agentka ZO generally. Can you tell us what, just in a brief outline, what the ceremony consisted of yesterday, the prize giving, what it was, who gave it to you, and what were the comments made, that sort of thing?
It was a wonderful event. I felt very deeply honoured. It was held at the Polish Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Extraordinary building, a great history, of course, itself. And there was myself and the other prize winners. We were all invited, along with my daughters, a few relatives, and a huge bank of press. It was extraordinary and fabulous that Radosław Sikorski took an hour to join us as well and to personally hand out the prizes and the diplomas.
Make any comments to you about the...
Yes,
the espionage, the agents, the war?
A little. He's very interested in this history. I've actually known him for over 10 years now, and it was wonderful. I think I was the only one he greeted personally. Around 10 years ago, he awarded me Poland's Bene Merito Cultural Honour. And so that was for a previous book I'd written about Krystyna Skarbek. So it was wonderful to be back with another story, even more deeply entrenched in Polish history, and he's got a huge personal interest. He actually met Elżbieta Zawacka when she was still alive.
That's an amazing meeting. She's a very exceptional woman, not just an agent, not just a member of the Home Army, but a woman. And as we were talking earlier, she overcame her very human fears of leading a life of a secret agent and a courier. Could you just give us an outline of who she was and what she did?
Yeah, I mean, she is the first in so many ways, and the only as well. She is one of the very first women to serve in the Second World War. She was shaken awake at 5 o'clock in the morning on the 1st of September 1939 and was already in the Women's Military Auxiliary in Poland, so stepped into action in uniform, served in what was then Lwów, now Lviv, in the defence of that city, and then to keep the route out for the Polish armed forces overseas to exit, to regroup and keep serving in Europe. She then joined the very early fledgling Polish resistance and became a leading courier, and was actually involved in taking information, smuggling information from Warsaw right into the heart of the Nazi Third Reich, into Berlin itself. Eventually, after many near misses, she survives, and she is posted as one of the only women, I think the only woman, to be an emissary of a commander of an Allied army. So General Grotowski made her his personal emissary and sent her on a mission from Warsaw to London, over nearly 1,000 miles of enemy-occupied territory. It's an incredibly dramatic story. And she arrives in London with 2 vital microfilm and 2 missions to undertake there. After which she joins the Chicocemni, the Polish elite special forces, and is the only woman to parachute back from Britain to enemy-occupied Poland to serve in the Warsaw Uprising, and she never stopped fighting even after the war.
Very easy question to ask you. What inspired you to write the book? I mean, was it Skarbek and the tradition of resistance? How did you formulate?
It was part of that. I first heard the story actually at the Polish Embassy in London. I was there at an event and I met a wonderful old lady at the back. I made a beeline for her to ask what she was doing there. She said she was a veteran of the Warsaw Uprising. She had served as a 16-year-old. And she asked me why I was there, and it was in connection with my book on Krystyna Skarbek. And she said, oh yes, Skarbek was a wonderful heroine, fantastic, but for goodness sake, why didn't you write about ZO? And that was the first time I'd heard her name. I had to say, who was ZO? And this woman had known her and served alongside her in the Warsaw Uprising. So hers was one of many stories I was very happy to weave through the narrative. And I thought if this remarkable woman rated ZO so highly, I had to find out more and came here to research it.
And where did you get the information from? Was it in some dusty old archive, people's
some of those.
mementos?
all of that. I mean, extraordinary stories from my research. I obviously at the IPN here, the ARN, lots of regional small archives, the most important of which is probably in Torun, an archive that Zawacka herself helped to pull together. It's the Elżbieta Zawacka Foundation. But also I interviewed lots of people. I interviewed a woman who shared a prison cell with her. I interviewed Andrzej Jimski, who was Lech Wałęsa's press secretary before, during and after Solidarity, who had known her in that period. Who had recorded her on tape and pushed the tapes across the table to me. I interviewed a nun at a convent who knew the women who had sheltered Zoe twice in the war when she had to lie low. So some extraordinary witness testimony as well.
And what's been the reception for Agentka Zoe so far?
It's been phenomenal. It's wonderful to see this story that was so little known, deliberately hidden really by the Soviet-backed communist regime who didn't want this narrative told. So to bring it out into the open. In Poland, it's been, it's just won this amazing award, which is fantastic. But in Britain, it was also shortlisted for the very prestigious Women's Prize in Britain. And this is a country I'd never heard her name. It was awarded silver in the Military History Matters Awards. And it was longlisted for a Historical Writers Award as well. So it's been great.
Well, before we continue, we must have a look at your diploma.
Very proud.
Very handsome copy.
It's absolutely beautiful. I love it. I shall be putting this up in my study for everyone to see.
Beautiful. How would you class yourself? Are you a military historian? Are you a military historian with a woman's view of things, the woman's view of war? Is it possible to class you as in terms of your academic research?
Don't think it's particularly helpful to try to fit people or parts of history into specific categories. I think it prevents us from seeing a bigger and more complex and more nuanced picture. So this is, of course, Polish history. It is female history, it's military history, but it's also shared history. And it's when we look at these stories that are less known, we don't get a perspective on something over here called women's history. We get a much richer picture of the diverse human resources it took ultimately to bring victory in the war and freedom to Poland eventually, years later.
Yes, we had to take the long view, didn't we, of that?
Did, yeah.
Especially Zawacka in her post-war academic life. Could you outline what she had to face once the war had died down as we know it in the West? It was still carrying on here, ideologically and militarily.
Right. Of course, this year we've just been celebrating the 80th anniversary, VE Day, in Victory in Europe, which in Britain we tend to think about bunting and Churchill recognising the crowds and tea parties. But of course here Poland is left with a Soviet-imposed communist regime and do not get the same freedom. And Zawacka continued to serve her country in the best way she felt she could. She's always fighting for a free and democratic Poland, but in various different ways. So she dedicates herself to education. She has a key role in pedagogy. She helps to develop long-distance learning. There's a whole generation who have lost their access to education. So correspondence and radio, distance learning. And she also secretly is collecting information, testimonials from those who served during the war, because she knows the narrative being put out doesn't match the reality that she has lived through, for which she is arrested again herself later on.
Yes. What kind of person would you say she was then, if you met her?
Incredibly courageous, of course, a deep patriot. She said she sucked in patriotism with her mother's milk. I love that phrase.
This is the 1918 generation that was brought up when Poland gained independence.
Yes, I mean she was she was born in Torun in 1909, and that part of Poland was annexed into the Prussian Empire, an earlier German empire. So her first language had to be German, and even her name was changed. She knew she was always Polish inside. She was raised to know she was a patriotic Pole, but her name was in public. She had to be Liesel, the German version of Elżbieta. So she was always fighting for the freedom to be herself and for the freedom of her country.
We've had a film about a previous subject of a previous book of yours, Krystyna Skarbek,
not based on my book though. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yes, of course. But nonetheless, the actual character of her as a NSOE operative or intelligence operative.
Their character, her name.
when we say this agent is a new James or a woman's James Bond, new James Bond, wartime James Bond, these characters that have a truly amazing life to tell during these 5 years, and they're compared to a fictional character. Should be the other way around, shouldn't it?
Absolutely right. It drives me mad. Yes, it is often said that Christina Skarbek was the first Bond girl, and she's not a Bond girl. She's much more Bond. She's at the centre of her story. She's a special agent. If you take away her agency, I mean, that is her raison d'etre. But she's, of course, as you say, much more than Bond. He's the fantasy of a male writer. She was a real woman, putting her life on the line. And actually, both of these women achieved so much for their country. In Skarbek's case, their country of their birth and their adopted country, Britain. Zawacka was fighting for Poland throughout, and they achieved a huge amount. So I think let's not diminish them in these terms.
Is that what the film industry tends to do? So presumably we can have a new film about Agent Zon Zawacka.
Well, I would love there to be a film that does the history justice, that does her character and her achievements justice. That would be wonderful to get a new audience interested in this history. But often in the television and films that we see at the moment, you still see, if there's a woman, perhaps you're told she's a courageous and a good shot, but you often see her in a red silk dress being rescued. And this is not the case. Despite all the TV and films, you don't have to be beautiful to be a special agent or to be a resistance fighter. And in fact, it could be a problem if it made your face more memorable. These were women whose achievements are often romanticised, and I think we need to rebalance our view on the effectiveness of these women and how much they achieved.
So you also write books on not just Polish agents,
no.
German Nazi German pilots in the Luftwaffe,
yes.
And there's that strain that runs through your work. Why is that, do you think? What drives you to be inspired by these remarkable, technically minded, courageous women?
I mean, you're right. My focus is very much on the female experience in the Second World War, a little on the First World War. And I think there is a rich seam of untold or poorly told history within there. And it's time that we brought these stories out into the forefront and gave due credit to the character and achievements of these very real women.
What else is there to find out?
Actually, when I was researching this book on Zawacka, I found so many remarkable stories of heroism, both male and female, that have not been told, but particularly some of the women's service. They're working collaboratively, and my book on Zawacka is a biography of her, but it tells about a group of men and women that she worked very closely with. And there are some women whose stories I just couldn't put in the book. There was too much already, and I wanted to have a focus, but I know there's some more stories that I want to tell in the future.
And what would you say lasting legacy that Elżbieta Zawacka and Krystyna Skarbek have in our, not just in our pop culture, but in our pantheon of Polish history?
It's exactly the same as the legacy of the great men whose names we know who served. It's the freedom of their country, democratic freedom today for Poland. It is everything that comes with that. Zawacka in particular went on to have a very key role in education, but also in ensuring that the historical narrative was not completely lost. And I couldn't have written my book without the records that she kept, for which she was arrested a second time. So extraordinary work.
Final question to you, which I probably know the answer to, is what's next on your list?
Well, I am under contract. I've written the preface. Sadly, I can't talk about it. All I can say is it's another story of a woman in the Second World War.
Excellent.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. So that's all we have time for today. Do join us next time, this time with Sally Jastrzębska, not me. And you can also read about a longer version of our discussion with Clare Mulley on our portal site. That's www.tvpworld.com. So see you then.